Gemmy Allen's Business Bigwigs. Using the powerful photon-accelerated multi-Quixie filing communicator device, Gemmy is able to transmit through time and space and contact past pioneers of business and management. Today she speaks with David C. McClelland on the self-motivated achiever, as well as other topics. And now, Gemmy's interview.
What motivated you to study the achievement motive?
My motivation is to find out what makes people tick. I started out after the Second World War trying to get a good 5-cent measure of human motivation. Up to that time, psychologists were largely measuring motivation in rats, and I decided we needed to measure motivation in people.
Does everyone have an achievement motive?
Well, everybody thinks they do, but not everybody does, at least the way we measure it. I think the way you describe it is that some people think about achievement a whole lot more.
What are the characteristics of people with a strong need for achievement?
When we first identified this thing, which I sometimes refer to as a mental virus, we weren't sure, of course, that it related to anything in the real world, that is, to actions that people actually took. But over the years, we finally discovered that they had some very definite characteristics. They calculate very carefully where they're most likely to get the maximum achievements. So it's partly a sense of achievement, of figuring out the angles all the time, kind of by yourself, setting your goals and accomplishing them. The ones who are really high in this type of motivation do it in everything they do. They're always figuring the angles, even the shortest way to get to the office in the morning.
Are there a lot of people high on the achievement motive?
No, as a matter of fact, there aren't too many, because there are lots of human motives, and this is only one. And I would say, not more than 10% of the people would score particularly high in this motive. But they're awfully important people. I mean, they're the ones that kind of make things tick.
Where do you find these people?
Generally speaking, they wind up in what we call entrepreneurial jobs. And entrepreneurial jobs, that is, jobs that require initiative and planning and putting things together, are largely in the business world, of course. And in the business world, they tend to gravitate towards sales, and they like to go into business for themselves.
Why do they go into sales?
Another characteristic of these people, I've mentioned a couple already. As I said before, he liked to set moderate goals for himself. But he also wanted to know how well he was doing, which is what we call feedback. Now, sales is a kind of occupation where you get very immediate feedback. You either make a sale or you don't make a sale. And that's why he's in that game, as contrasted, let's say, with college teaching, where you don't know whether you're succeeding or not. You think you're explaining something to people, and you don't know whether they're getting it. You don't have any concrete knowledge of it. Sales is very different.
Do kids have an achievement motive?
Kids, surprisingly enough, will show some of these achievement characteristics or interests in playing achievement-type games, even in kindergarten, who say, some people have got drive and other people haven't got it, and they're born that way. Well, our evidence is that their parents have a lot to do with it. Some kids have parents, for example, who set moderate goals for their kids, not unrealistically high goals or not very low goals, as if they didn't care what the kids did.
How would you manage someone with a high need for achievement?
The best thing I could do is just leave him alone, because I'm just bugging him when I go in and try to tell him what he should do. He's got it all figured out. Occasionally I might be able to give him some technical help. He would welcome that, because people with high need for achievement always like to get something that'll help them solve their problem. But I just wouldn't bother him about goal setting.
Should you promote high achievers?
Well, that's the common assumption, but oddly enough, it just isn't true. In fact, it isn't necessarily true. A guy who's like Al, obviously a very good salesman, it doesn't mean he's a good manager of other people. In fact, he quite obviously isn't. He doesn't care enough about other people. In fact, the tendency, this is a very classic example of, in the business world, of the best salesman being promoted to be manager. And then he goes on trying to behave in the way he was successful as an independent salesman. And he's terrible at it because he keeps interfering with the people under him. He doesn't develop them into independent achievers on their own. He may even be jealous of them. He doesn't get any fun out of sitting in the office all day instead of going out figuring out all these things he should be doing. The best tennis players don't always make the best coaches. And there's some very good coaches that have never been terribly good tennis players. There's the different qualities involved. You have to learn how to bring the other guy out.
How important is money to the high achiever?
Actually, money serves two purposes for a person with high achievement motivation. On the one hand, it gives him concrete feedback on how well he's doing. There's nothing so concrete as the amount of a sale that you've made or the amount of profit that you've made or commission or whatever it may be. And that gives him a real hard feeling that he knows how well he's doing. On the other hand, with some people, particularly business entrepreneurs, money is seen as a means to an end. That is, it's something that they can use to accomplish goals. And they always have said that money wasn't an end in itself. That is, you can't really do anything with money. And oddly enough, most people have disbelieved the businessmen. You know, they say, well, what they're really after is the money. And don't believe them when they say it's the fun of the game and so on. But we found out that in fact seems to be the case. I'm not saying they're totally disinterested in money, but it's more the symbol of how well they're doing or the means that they can use to accomplish something than anything else.
How important is money to the low achiever?
Money can often serve as an incentive, oddly enough. It can make them work when they otherwise wouldn't work. We found that out in a simple laboratory task. A person with low motivation isn't working as hard as he can. You offer him some money, he works for it.
Should a business make a deliberate attempt to increase the number of achievement-oriented employees?
Well, yes, but I want to qualify that a little bit. I mean, it depends on the organization. There's some organizations that are so full of achievers that if you had any more around, the place would blow up. I mean, it takes all kinds of people to make a world, including a business organization. Some achievement orientation is good for everybody, to be sure, but I'm not sure that in an accountant, for example, I want a guy taking risks and initiative and so forth. I want a guy who's really accurate. There are other human qualities involved. So that I think that we have to see achievement motivation as one important human quality, which is critical for certain types of jobs and not so critical for others.